What's good, Bills Mafia? This is a new segment that I want to try with you guys, keeping it short. I know we do the long form podcast every week, and we don't always get to make the points like in the post game show that we find out more stuff on Monday, Tuesday as we break down that game. So I want to do this new segment. This is something Eric Turner and I have been talking about for a while. It's kind of what we hang our hat on in terms of perception versus reality. Oftentimes we get out of a game and we have this immediate reaction, and there's some volume yardage stats or something that feels a certain way. But then when we actually get into it, oftentimes in the game of football, it's not as bad as it seems. Players talk about that all the time. The film isn't always as good as it looks, and it's never as bad as it looks. And that's kind of what I want to break down for you here. And the topic today that I wanted to discuss with you guys is the Buffalo Bills defense. And I think a lot of people thought that the Buffalo Bills defense, quote unquote, let up in the second half of this game. And I don't know that there's a lot to back up that claim other than there's nothing that I can defend against. The Lions scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. That's never good. I'm not going to sit here and defend that that's good defense necessarily. And they give up a ton of yards, right? 1,000 yards, over 1,000 yards in the game by both offenses. So if you followed me for a long time, I think you know how I feel about yards in general. They're not that indicative of defensive success or offensive success necessarily. And hat tip to the Lions. In the second half, they made adjustments to some of what the Bills were trying to do and trying to stop. And the Lions came back. Ben Johnson's a really good offensive coordinator. Jared Goff made some crazy throws that I haven't seen him make. I did a lot of scouting for this matchup, and he played some of the best football he's played all year. That's frustrating. That continues to happen to the Buffalo Bills. So I want to get into some of why I think this is a bit of a perception versus the reality of the situation. And again, I'm not defending that this was a great defensive performance by the Bills, but a couple of things right off the top here. It wasn't the worst performance by the Buffalo Bills in terms of starting this game, right? We went into this game. The Lions offense is the 4th best DVOA offense in all of football. One of the highest scoring offenses right there with the Buffalo Bills. They were a little ahead of the Bills going into this game in scoring offense. 10th best passing offense according to DVOA, and 2nd best rushing offense according to DVOA. And I think everybody's perception going into this game was the Bills can't stop the run, right? That's the weakness of this defense. They can't stop the run. And I actually think that is what Babich, McDermott game plan to do. If you're going to win this game, especially early on, you wanted to stop the run. And I think that's where we saw a switch in some defensive philosophy. So I want to pull up some stuff here. Eric Turner and I talked offline a little bit, and I think this is where Babich and McDermott were trying to stop this Lions offense, right? We know it's one of the more high-powered rushing offenses in the league, and that's the perceived flaw of the Buffalo Bills defense is giving up a lot of rushing. So I think every fan going into this game was concerned about that running back duo, that offensive line, just working the Buffalo Bills defense up and down the field. And we saw them come out pretty aggressive and doing some things that we haven't quite seen. And this was with both starting safeties out. Rasul Douglas, who's a really good run defender, also out. And Matt Milano not quite playing to the way that we are expecting Matt Milano to play, right? And so there's some context mixed in here about this Bills defense going into this matchup. But I want to pull up these tweets from Eric Turner. This was something he and I were kind of talking about offline. I'm glad he shared the statistics for this. Interesting, given the discussion about the Bills letting up in the second half. I think their typical 2 high shells did its job and / served its purpose. Single high safety looks by half, cover 1 and cover 3 looks. So that's going to be anything that's got a single high safety. If you know coverages or not, we've got a bunch of resources on that at cover 1, but it'll be your cover 1 looks, which is man, what we're named after here, and cover 3 looks, which is Bills have played a ton of cover 3 here this year. In the first half, they had 20 plays, gave up 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5.5 yards per play. And in the second half, they did 15 plays in these single high looks, 191 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 12.7 yards per play, right? In the 2 high safety looks by half, so that's cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, and cover 2 man. In the first half, they gave up 13 plays, they had 13 plays, 79 yards, 6.1 yards per play. And in the second half, it was 24 plays, 134 yards, and 5.8 yards per play. So that's just a little bit of context here of what they were doing and the splits per half, which I think is important because I think a lot of people thought because they had so many yards and points in the second half that they somehow went to soft zone way more or did something totally different. And the splits overall are pretty even when you add in the 20 and 15 plus the 13 and 24. It's not that big of a variance difference. We're talking about a real slim margin of the amount of plays that we saw switches. And also, again, some added context, the fourth quarter of this game, one, the Bills win probability was up very high, over 90% for the majority of the fourth quarter. You lost Colt Bishop to an injury. He went out with cramp. So Kareem Jackson, who's 36 years old, came in, hasn't played really at all this year. He got a lot of reps. Dorian Williams got hurt. Matt Milano got hurt. So you saw Balin Spector, who hasn't played in a month, also playing a lot of reps. I think that played into some of what the coaches did and some of the success that the Lions saw offensively. Down here further, Goff's stats versus the middle of the field, open versus closed. Single high is closed, two high is open. He was 19 for 24 versus the single high for 285 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1.2 yards per attempt. I don't think that yards per attempt is actually right. I'll have to check on that. And the two high open, 17 for 30, 181 yards, 6.5 yards per attempt, but no touchdowns, right? And so they weren't giving up anything over the top versus this Lions passing game with those two high looks, which is frustrating to watch when they're getting the 6 yards per. But they're not giving up the explosive plays, which when you have a winning percentage, win probability rate that's in the 90s, you don't want to give up the explosive plays, right? We did see the one late in the third quarter that went for an explosive. That felt bad because it got them sort of the perception that they were back in the game. But let's take a look at some of those plays in the second half and see if there was some perception versus reality here of what the success was and the results were versus what actually happened. So let's take a look. All right, so here on this one, you're on a 3rd and 7. This is about 9 minutes left in the game, a little over 9 minutes left in the game. And why I want to show this one is this is just Ben Johnson being a really good offensive coordinator, in my opinion. We praise Joe Brady for the way he called this game and getting guys like Ty Johnson matched up on linebackers, right? Some of the stuff they were able to do matchup-wise, some of those 4x1 sets, different things that we saw to attack the Lions defense. Well, Ben Johnson on the other side is just as good, right? One of the better offensive coordinators in the league, really has this offense playing well, one of the best units in the league. And on the 3rd and 7, where you've almost got them stopped in the red zone, trying to hold them to a field goal here, it's probably 4 down territory no matter what. So they're just trying to get yardage. But watch this play here. I'll get this out of the way. They get Sam Laporta matched up. They know it's man coverage against Cam Lewis. Look at this. Creates a little bit of friction there on the rub. And you get Cam Lewis against Sam Laporta. Not a great matchup for Cam Lewis, who has like a 19.4% missed tackle rate in the open field against Sam Laporta. He gets the first down. But I want to run this back real quick because they send pressure. You got Kareem Jackson in here. You've got Balin Spector in here. It's a 3rd down. They're in a single high look, and they got a man matchup. But they bring pressure here. Look, the linebackers both blitz. You get 6 guys rushing, men in coverage, in man coverage. So this idea that they just drop into soft zone coverage, where you can tell if a defense is aggressive or not, is on these 3rd down plays, right? And so they were still remaining aggressive, even though Jared Goff was pretty much carving them up in these single high looks. They still went aggressive on a 3rd down. And unfortunately, the Lions made a better play than the Bills made here. And I don't want to pile on Cam Lewis. It's not his fault. He's put in a really bad spot here in terms of he's the 4th safety, right? He's a hybrid defensive back player for a game day active roster. Him being a starting safety, he played pretty well in terms of what should be expected out of him. And then you have Kareem Jackson in here on this one. Balin Spector, again, this is a banged up defense in this moment of the game. And again, the win probability at this point of the game was still in like the 92% win probability, and you were keeping them from just moving down the field and scoring very fast. So that's one play that I wanted to point out there. We'll get to another one right here. All right, this play here. All right, this play here is one that I want to really highlight here because this is the Bills are up 35-14. This is a 3rd and 17, guys. And this is where it's a game of inches. That's an old cliche. It couldn't be more true. This is going to run back here on a loop. I want you to watch this throw again by Goff and look at Terrell Bernard here. Look how close he is. If this goes for a pass breakup or an interception, we're talking about 35-14. The Bills taking it. This is late in the 3rd quarter. This is about 1:30 left in the 3rd quarter. Even if it's pass breakup, it's 4th and 17. If the Bills were able to get this to be a turnover, that's pretty much ball game, right? The win probability at this point is up in like 94%. This is a totally different game. Instead, Cam Lewis does make a decent attempt at a tackle, but it's St. Brown in open field. I'm not going to blame him for missing this tackle. It stinks to look at, but this is them making a great play. This is a 66-yard touchdown. It's a good defense, guys. This is a single high look. This is them remaining aggressive late into the third quarter. And this is just a better throw, catch, and run after the catch. There's just not much you can do about this. It stinks. It's tough to look at. It's tough to swallow. But this is where it's a game of inches. And again, if this play flips the other way, we're talking a totally different way about this Buffalo Bills defense and how they responded in the second half. Because this third quarter, right? They came out of the third quarter. The Bills scored on offense. The Bills got a stop, and then they got another turnover. Christian Benford caused the turnover, and so they were able to get stops in the third quarter. It was just the fourth quarter where it really bled out. All right, the Bills still have a multiple score lead. They're up 2 possessions in this game with about a minute 40 left. This is when they really start to go into a too high shell. And this is also skewing the data a little bit because this is where I believe the Lions had a 16 play drive to end the game. Obviously, there was some spikes in there that aren't really plays that mess up that data a little bit. But still, this is a 10 plus play drive, which is exactly what you want to do with a minute 40 left. You have a 2 possession lead. You want to keep everything in front of you in the middle of the field where they're forced to either spike or take timeouts. And the Bills went too high shell here. Again, Kareem Jackson's in this game. Balen Spector's still in this game in this look. But I want to show you that the Bills defense actually did get pressure with 4. And this is something that we've really been upset about, the Bills not being able to get pressure with their defensive line. Ed Oliver obviously had a fantastic game, but it wasn't just him. Here, I'll show you one play. This is a 3rd and 5. Where it is so close on this play. And this is, I think, where Jared Goff probably performed the best outside of his yardage and touchdowns. This last drive, which made it feel a lot closer. Again, I'll show you the win probability of where things were at this moment. But in this game, he did a really good job of getting rid of the ball and escaping pressure, which is not something that he typically does. But here, I'll show you this one. This is a 3rd and 5 with a minute 40 left. Jared Goff's dead to rights here, and he gets rid of the ball. It's not quite intentional grounding. I think some fans wanted it. I guess you can make a case for it, but there is a receiver there. He gets rid of it, but he almost gets sacked. If he gets sacked here, you're looking at a 3rd and 15, 3rd and 6, or a 4th and 15, 4th and 16 here. That's a game changer. This game might be over. They're probably forced to take a timeout, and they're looking at a 4th and long. That might be game over. Wrap it up. And the Bills had that 98% win probability at this point. This is ball game, right? It's a game of inches, guys. 4 or 5 plays sway how we talk about the game. This is one of those plays. I got a couple more from this drive. Hold on one second. All right, here we are. 129 left in the fourth quarter. They were able to convert on that last part of the series. They stopped the clock, didn't use their timeouts, but they're at the 129 mark. Same thing, man. Right here. Check this out, guys. They have Jared Goff dead to rights. I mean, wrapped up. Solomon gets him wrapped up here. He somehow escapes. This is great play by Goff. Keeps it going, gets the ball out of bounds, stops the clock. There's just not much you can say. You really want Solomon to get him down. This kind of ends the game. Again, this pushes them back. You're looking at a 3rd and long from this moment. I don't know if they're able to convert. Maybe they are, but they're taking time off the clock. They're using a timeout in this situation. The Bills got to them with 4 multiple times on this last series. And again, if they just get one of these sacks and convert one of these, it's a totally different perception. We're talking about a multi-score win, multi-possession win, and it not even really being close or feeling close at all, even though it wasn't. And I got one more for you on this drive. All right, guys, this is the last one that I want to show you here. This is under a minute left in the game. And again, they're in too high shell, trying to keep everything in front of them, doing a pretty good job keeping everything in the middle of the field, forcing the Lions to get up, run some clock, to spike the ball, or use their timeouts, which is exactly what you want to do. Again, up 2 scores, high win probability. You're just trying to make them take as long as they can. If they're going to go down the field and score, you want it to be long. You don't want to give up explosives. Obviously, you want to get the ball turned over. Obviously, you want to make big plays. The Bills are so close again a number of times. Here's Ed Oliver, just had a great day, a nice stunt, gets in there, gets pressure on Goff. Again, maybe an intentional grounding here missed. I'm not going to argue that with the refs. There was a receiver in the area, but he just chucks this away, stops the clock, preserves from getting sacked. Heads up play by Goff here, and there's not much you can do. You can't play this much better than Ed Oliver and the defensive line played this play. It was just a tough one. And again, the Lions go down here and score with 12 seconds left, and they force an onside kick. They haven't converted an onside kick yet this year. We're talking about 6% or less play to do that. And even if they get it, 12 seconds left, no timeouts from about midfield. This wasn't a high chance, even though it felt like it. I think there's some scars from 13 seconds that have crept into the fan base, and me included. But I don't believe that, again, the perception of this game is what we saw. And real quick, I want to show you guys the win probability here at this point. So again, we're going to go back to at the 2-minute mark when this drive started. And I'm going to show you real quick here what the win probability looked like. And I've gotten some pushback on win probability again because of 13 seconds. But guys, 13 seconds was an anomaly. That is not the average case. And I know that there's no answer for that. I get it. And it's tough to swallow. But let's see here. I'm going to pull this up for you. Here was going into that drive with 2 minutes left on the first down. The Bills are at a 99.7% win probability, and it never decreased. No matter all these plays that they were able to convert and be successful on and go down and score, the Bills win probability never dropped below 99%. So keep that in mind when we're rage at the team and how they played. I think a lot of context went into how they played this game. I think a lot of context went into the fourth quarter, specifically injuries, having your fifth safety of practice squad, 36-year-old being out on the field, Balen Spector being out on the field. And even then they still had some success in terms of getting to the press, getting to Goff, getting some pressure on him. It just didn't necessarily work. But what did work is they forced them to use a lot of time and take all the time off the clock. And the win probability never decreased throughout this moment. And so again, it felt like a closer game. The box score is not indicative of actually how well I think the Bills defense have played and how well they schemed up against one of the best offensive coordinators in the game. So just keep that in mind. Let me know in the comment section. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe I'm a homer. Maybe I'm just putting some rose-colored lens on this stuff and that the Bills defense is a huge problem and they're going to blow it and Josh Allen's going to have to suffer through another terrible defensive performance. That's quite possible. Let me know in the comment section. Let's talk about this. Is the Bills defense late game going into softer coverage, is that perception or is it reality? Let me know. I made my case, make yours. Thanks for following along on this one, you guys, and I hope to do more of these in the future. Appreciate you. Again, like, subscribe, comment on this. Make sure that you're following everyone at Cover One. We appreciate everything you guys do, and go Bills.